Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to Paris History Avec Hemingway. I'm back with Claudine, and today we are talking about Francois the First. I'm saying it in English because I don't feel like saying premier. Claudine, you can get us started on who is Francois number one.
Yeah, so Francois Premier,
that guy
was Francis the First, I guess, if you want to, anglicize as Rick Steves likes to say. He, of course, was the King of France. He was raised by Louise Savoy, and she was a lover of the Renaissance. And so when it comes to Francois, he's kind of one of my favorite of the kings. He kind of did a lot, which you'll soon hear about. But I kind of picked him because he really transformed a lot of what we see today and also know of the monarchy in France.
So what is his beginnings? Who was he? What did he do?
Well, Louise Savoy, she was really, really in love with everything that had to do with the Italian Renaissance. She had gone to Italy. She, when she had her children, she had Francois, and then she also had a daughter, Marguerite, and she decided to basically raise them with an appreciation of everything that there was about the Italian Renaissance.
I love that.
Yeah, the Italian Renaissance also had, I'm sure Giuseppe would have different things to say about this, but there was a lot of Frenchness embedded in the Italian Renaissance.
I thought the Italians brought France all the things.
That's what a lot of people, that's where a lot of the misconception is when it comes to specific things. There's certain things which we'll get to. But he was born in 1494, so a very, very long time ago. He was born at the Chateau de Cognac, down in the Cognac region. And his mom, Louise Savoy, and Marguerite, his older sister, she basically raised him. So they were learning Italian, they were learning Latin, they were appreciating art, they were appreciating architecture, all of these different Italian things. One of the biggest misconceptions is, and I hear this from a lot of people, when you say Catherine de Medici, a lot of people say, oh, she brought forks.
Yeah, forks.
It wasn't. It was actually long before that, and it was within the reign of Francois and his mother, Louise Savoy. She was the one who actually brought those things.
What? So why are we all hearing about Medici all the time?
Well, because Catherine needs something good about her, I guess.
No witchcraft, just forks.
Yeah, other than like her witchcraft and killing thousands and thousands of people. She, it's, I guess, nice to say that she brought forks to France.
Yeah, that's true. We like forks.
Yeah. So she, his father actually passed away when he was pretty young, and they didn't have, he wasn't actually in the running to be, he wasn't in the royal line of succession. And at the time, his King Louis VII was the a cousin of Francois' father. And so he didn't have any heirs. He only had daughters. And so they decided, she was very keen in her decisions, and she found out that, she kind of aligned herself with them. They ended up moving to the Louvre, to the Palais du Louvre, and living there. And so he decided, he really liked him. So he actually named Francois his heir to the throne.
That's kind of cool. He's just like, you're cool. You just want to be the heir.
Yeah. And so he ended up actually suggesting that he marry his daughter, Claude de France. And so Francois did. And so then a short time later, he ended up actually passing away, and Francois ended up becoming the king. And he was, at the time, it was like January 1st. He was, not very old. And so his mother served as regent for part of the time, but they still kept this love of architecture and art, and reading was another big thing. He would read everything. So when he started to get a little bit older, and he would go around, he's really known for a lot of the chateaus of the Loire region that he created, he rebuilt and added on to, and they all have this huge flourish of the Renaissance. Another really fun thing is some of the kings actually had an emblem, and his was a salamander. So sometimes when you see in different places, especially in the Loire Valley, you will see salamanders on some of the chateaus, and that's a good mark that was that Francois was the one who actually kind of redid that one.
I've seen a lot of those. That's a weird animal to choose.
It is. And there's also ones, I think it was like Louis VII had the porcupine. And
That's weird.
there's a really cool door that's in the 7th, and it's opposite Les Invalides. And it's just this random door on this street. And above the door is carved in stone a porcupine.
That's really weird.
Yeah. So Francois, one of the biggest things that, when you go to France or you go to Paris, and you go, a wonderful, amazing place to go check out. It's outside of Paris. It takes a little bit of to get to, just because you take the RER out there, and then you got to switch to a bus, and you got to do all this stuff. But it's to go to the Chateau de Fontainebleau, and it is a fantastic thing to see. It is this gorgeous chateau. It dates back to the 12th century. Francois himself in 1528 decided he wanted to come in and reconstruct it and create more of a Renaissance style of a hunting lodge, because he loved to go out there, because the Fontainebleau is really known for its huge forest that is around it. And so he used to love to go out there and go hunting. And so he decided there was this, it dated back to the 12th century. He had most of it removed except for the keep, which is basically the dungeon tower. He had everything else taken down, and then began to rebuild it using Italian artists and architects.
I mean, Fontainebleau is pretty amazing. I really like it. It's up there with Versailles.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, it's one of those things, like, it's definitely a little bit different inside. It's, it's very lavish inside, but it's different in the way that Versailles is. So it's a really cool one to go see, because there's much, much fewer people that go.
Yeah, it's always kind of empty every time I've been there.
Yeah, it's really cool. So he ended up having all of these different Italian artists come, and then he decided, before it was finished, that he was going to just go down and move to the Chateau de Blois, and kind of abandon Fontainebleau, and just didn't have any focus on it anymore. So he had all these different Italian architects and designers working on it. Gilles Germain and Grasso Gem and his brother Francois Germain. And he had this all created. And part of the reason he wanted it redesigned was to hold his art collection.
I mean, of course, that's why you build a castle.
I mean, doesn't everybody do that? Yeah. So, and then Rosa Florentino, he designed, when you go out there today, sadly, most of what he did, what Francois spearheaded, is no longer there, because, of course, there's a few people that came after him that kind of imparted their piece on it. But one part of it is pretty amazing. You can still go into this really amazing room, and it's the Gallery of Francois Premier. The doors are these beautiful carved wood doors. It has a big F in them because of Francois. It also has the salamander. He basically had it done so every single square inch of it is decorated. The ceiling's decorated, the walls are decorated. It's got stuccos and paintings and everything. It's very Italian and very French at the same time. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's just it's this long hall. It's open. There's a bust of him at the end. So, he's still looking over, still
We're still
looking
looking
over it.
over.
Yeah. But then after he kind of walked away, Henry II, his son, took it over. His wife was Catherine de Medici. Catherine was very close to Francois. They were quite close, probably because, of his love of the Renaissance. And here, she is Italian. And then, they could talk about all of those kinds of things. So they were quite close. Henry II wasn't as enamored with all of those things, like a child normally is of what things that their parents
Yeah.
liked.
Normal.
Yeah. So she basically, Catherine kind of spearheaded a lot of that, especially after Henry II died. Later on, Henry IV made a huge change to it. And then Louis the 13th and 14th also imparted their everything that they wanted to do on there. But it was Napoleon the First, Napoleon Bonaparte, that did kind of most of the changes to it that we still see today. That's where he ended up leaving for a while. That's where he abdicated from. It was on, the famous, there's a painting of him on April 20th where he stands on the horseshoe stairwell that is in front of it. That's really cool to see up close. He stood there and, abdicated and left France for good. And so he did a lot of the changes. There's his throne. It's one of the only remaining original thrones of Napoleon left in France, is sitting there in this really, really cool room. There's a room, of Marie Antoinette, because then when Napoleon III came along, his wife, Eugenie, that we've talked about before, was fascinated with Marie Antoinette. So she ended up having her room restored because she just loved anything that was Marie Antoinette or Josephine.
We like her.
Yeah, we really like her. But it is definitely a cool place to see. It's definitely go see the Francois Pimé Gallery because it definitely gives you that feeling of exactly what it was that he loved so much. And of course, it is closed on Tuesdays, but it is open all the other days of the week, pretty much from 9:30 in the morning till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, depending on the season. But it also has some very lush gardens that you walk around. It has this huge man-made lake out in front. You could even get boats and, cruise around on a little boat. And the town is really adorable too.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do is to get the boat.
Yeah, it's really cool outside. It is, you also have a museum of Napoleon Museum there. And it's it's rather small, but it is really cool. They have this hallway that is filled with these giant portraits of members of his family. And each one of them is just like over the top. It's amazing. They also have his coronation sword there. And it's replaced, it's not the original gems that were in it, but it has these diamonds in it that are just, massive diamonds. And it was the sword that he had when he was wearing when he was coronated that you see in the painting by Jacques Louis David.
I didn't know you had the museum there. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was closed for quite a while. It just reopened in 2019. The first few times I went out there, it was closed, which I was really bummed out about. And then they reopened it in 2019. There's currently a special exhibition going on there until the end of August or mid-September. That's going on because all of the things this year, because it would have been the 200th anniversary of his death.
Oh, so that's why I didn't know about it. It's been closed forever.
Yeah. So it was closed for a little while, but that wasn't of course there's all the chateaus in the Loire, but he also did the Hotel de Ville in Paris. And the Hotel de Ville in Paris is it's for a lot of people, it's their very favorite building in Paris because it's amazing to look at. You could look at that thing every single day and find something new. There are, I love the little guys on the top, and I'll post pictures on my website, but on the top of them are all these like little soldiers that just basically line the roof line. And they're just so cool, especially if you get it on a day where, it's kind of cloudy or the sun is setting and it's really cool image of them. But he had that built. It replaced in original mayor's office of Paris, and he decided he wanted to have one that was Renaissance. So he had one built in between 1535 and 1551. It was the side that he was building was the side closest to the Seine, so the south side. It ended up getting stopped for a while because of the wars of religion. And then basically Henry IV had to take it back up in 1605, and then Louis XIII as well in 1628. Inside of it, it was all done by Italian artists. The inside of it, though, there was these rooms that the ceilings were painted by Delacroix and Ingres, just amazing pieces of art that just covered the inside of these large rooms.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Sadly, though, it ended up actually during the Commune, ended up actually getting set on fire. The communards were upset. There was the Commune that was the form of the government. They were in there. And so all of these people came. They wanted answers for things. They ended up breaking in, stealing all of the weapons they had inside. And then actually they had all this hot oil and they just poured it everywhere and set it on fire.
No.
Yeah. So the original one burned for like 3 days. And it just ended up being destroyed. Most of, none of the paintings, none of that stuff survived. But then it was decided later on that they wanted to rebuild it. And so they had the original plans. And so the version you see today is pretty much identical to the original one that Francois wanted to build.
Interesting. It's amazing that anything survived considering all the revolutions and like insanity that they didn't burn everything down.
Well, it is, but there at the same time, there's, the Tuileries burned down and the Hotel de Ville and all of these different things. But, for the most part, the Louvre was pretty much untouched. I mean, there was a few things, when they burned the Tuileries because it was attached to the Louvre. Some of the fire did get into the very end. They got it out. There was another time that they set the Bibliothèque in the Louvre that was in the Richelieu wing. They set that on fire. But for the most part, Versailles and the Louvre, survived through everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is amazing considering everything but it was the museum for the people after the revolution. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it opened actually during the revolution, which just seems so odd. But I think because it was dedicated to the people and they didn't look at it as this, the monarchy or anything like that, that it ended up that they left it alone.
Yeah, it's like the only reason it survived.
Yeah, but the Hotel de Ville sadly ended up getting burnt to the ground. Henry IV was able to see, or Francois was able to see the beginning of it on the south side, kind of to the center of the building, if you were looking at it today. And then over time, they added to the street. When it was rebuilt, it was increased. The size was increased. On the outside of it, if you are looking at it and walk all the way around, if you do what I did and you take pictures of every single statue on the building and make a note of what each name is, because on the outside, there's 338 statues.
What?
On the outside of the building. And there are ones of artists and politicians and all of these notable people. There's actually a few women on there. Very few. There's only like 2 or 3, but you could find, you do find Delacroix. You find all of these different artists and architects throughout French history. So it's really, really cool to just walk around it and look up, because the Rue de Rivoli side, there's probably 30 of them just on that side, and that's the short side.
So they actually put women up there? That's pretty surprising.
There's a few of them there's a few women on there. On the side that's on the south side, if you look up there, it is where the mayor her office actually is, and she looks over towards Notre Dame. She looks over the equestrian statue of Etienne Marcel, which is right there, looking towards the Seine. That's always an amazing spot for the cherry blossoms in the spring. There's these 2 huge trees on either side of him. You always get this really cool picture of them. And there's a little garden underneath it. And the garden sometimes has in the cages chickens and bunnies.
What?
Yeah. Scared me to death the first time I walked in there. It was like an early Sunday morning, before anything is awake in Paris. And I was going to actually do research on all the statues. And I walked in there, and all of a sudden I heard something wrestling, which in Paris usually means a rat, which I am completely freaked out about. And I heard wrestling, and I thought it was, a rat, and it was actually a bunny rabbit in the cages.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, but we did a walk there recently, one of our live Sunday walks, and there was no bunnies or chickens there. So, but the cages were still there. I think maybe they were taken away for the weekend. I don't know.
I hope they didn't eat them.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I hopefully not. I mean, that's maybe the mayor. She keeps them down there, and that's lunch.
That's lunch.
But you could also go, Hotel de Ville. It used to be you could go in there for tours every once in a while. Sadly, when the terrorist attacks happened a few years ago, all of that kind of stuff kind of stopped on some of this certain political buildings. You can go in there once a year. I've talked about this 1,000 times about the Patron weekend. That is the third weekend in September every single year. The visit to the Hotel de Ville is amazing. It's so well done. You get to go in there and you get to go through and see all of these amazing rooms. They did not, they replaced the Delacroix and the Ingres and all of those with different artists and different painters, because all of those guys had died off by then. But it is still just as amazing and gorgeous inside.
It's a great place to visit.
It is. It's a really gorgeous place. But Francois, I mentioned earlier about his art collection for Fontainebleau. And I think one of the biggest things about Francois, and there's one thing that a lot of people know that we did talk about before when we talked about the Louvre, is the fact that he is the one that basically started collecting art that became the basis of the Louvre Museum that we know today.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And specifically his collection of Leonardo da Vinci and a specific painting, the Mona Lisa.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when he decided he was going to move to Paris, he decided that he was going to stay at the Louvre. And at the time, the Louvre was this very old medieval building. It wasn't, anything like we know it today. If you go to the Louvre and you go into the back courtyard, which is the Cour Carrée, if you are in the southwest corner of it, you could look down and there's there's a rectangle and a circle that has these very decorative old grates in it. And that was kind of what was the center of what the medieval Louvre is. So it was very small compared to what we see today. Yeah, it's really cool back there. He ended up deciding that he was going to move back there, and the medieval version of it just wasn't good enough. He ended up having one time Charles V of England came over, and he could not believe that this was their idea of a palace. And so of course he ended up like, well, we have to change this now. So he asked Pierre Lescot to come in 1528 to redesign this. He had the dungeon tower demolished, and he had them start to cut some bigger windows in, because at that time they just had these kind of small slits of windows. He had them put some bigger windows in, and then had a plan that it was his grand projet to redo the way that the Louvre looked. So Pierre Lescot designed this very lavish with this Renaissance feel to it. The only part that Francois ended up seeing done, and it's the only part that actually, when you look at the Louvre and you go underneath it, there's a part underneath it where you can see the former base of the towers. But above ground, the oldest part is where the Salle des Caryatides is, which is in the Sully wing, which is in the southwest corner of it. And in the Salle des Caryatides, that is the one with his 4 caryatides that are holding up this little, what they call the musician's balcony. That was basically what the part that Francois had Pierre Lescot create. After he died, Henry II took over and started, we're still trying to follow his father's wishes. The grand projet of Francois Premier was still being worked on by Napoleon III.
Oh God, it took forever.
Yeah, so it all took forever. But then of course these guys are going to add their own little spin on things because they're not going to, they want to say that this is their deal.
Mhm.
So slowly but surely everything kind of came together. But the Louvre, of course, that is also where Henry IV was his wax effigy that we talked about before was put on display for like 3 weeks in the Salle de Caryatide,
Ew.
and people would eat with him. Set up
Ew.
long tables, and hundreds of people would sit in there and eat with him.
So creepy.
Yeah,
So creepy.
yeah. But he ended up, having this love of art, so he started collecting it. He collected it, of course, the Italians. He also collected and loved Danish art. But one time he was down in Italy. He went on in December of 1515. He was in Bologna meeting Pope Leo IX. He ended up meeting Leonardo da Vinci at court, and he asked him to build him a mechanical lion that could move his head and hold flowers.
Hold flowers.
Yeah, so because Leonardo, he wasn't just a painter, he designed all these different things and mechanical things. And so the two of them had like really bonded. They ended up becoming very good friends. He would actually call Leonardo his father, and he had asked him, he said, do you want to, you should come back with me to France. I'll take care of you. I'll put you up in the chateau. So Leonardo packed up his things, including the Mona Lisa, the Virgin and Child, the Saint Anne, and the Saint Jean Baptiste paintings, and packed it all up and came back to France, to the Loire Valley. He was staying at the Clos de Lucé, which is in Amboise, and he would basically work on his paintings. But Francois also had him working on court events. Like Leonardo da Vinci was an event planner. And he had him also designing costumes for the people to be wearing at court. So that is I think that's just hilarious, considering, here he is, this, what we think is one of the greatest artists ever. And he was actually also being told to plan parties and to design costumes.
That's hilarious. I love that so much.
Yeah. His last 3 years of his life, he spent there in France. 4 of his 13 paintings, Francois either purchased or Leonardo just gave it to him. He did purchase the Mona Lisa. He ended up dying there at the Clos de Lucé, which, and the legend says that Francois was holding him in his arms as he died. There's a painting of that at the Petit Palais in Paris, but most historians say that actually didn't happen.
I mean, it sounds very dramatic.
It does. Very dramatic. But Francois' collection also included different paintings by Jean Clouet, who also painted the king. There are 2 paintings of him in the Louvre, in the Sully wing, in this very small, dark room. They're behind a glass case, and they're actually pretty good size, but they're behind this glass case. It's very dark in there. One of them is the king, and all of his regal, he's got his Order of Saint Michel medal around his neck, and he, looks very regal and very fancy. And then there's another painting of him depicted as Jean Baptiste.
What?
Saint Jean the Baptist, which is kind of funny because it's like, well, I guess when you're king, you could ask them to paint you in any way you want.
I would be asked to be painted as Taylor Swift.
Yeah. God. Yeah. But they're really, really cool paintings. I always go in there. There was one time I was in there not that long ago, and it was actually closed for renovation. I was just so distraught because I love to go in there, and I'm always like, oh, hey, Francois. I like just go in and say hi to him. But
your buddy. That
collection of his paintings was also like, he had tapestries and silver and all of this other like amazing art. It traveled through the family. It went to Henry II, Henry IV, it stayed in the family. And then on August 10th, 1793, it was basically the basis of the collection of the Louvre, the royal collection. And from then we have the Louvre today.
I had no idea. Also, I love that Da Vinci just packed up his little Mona Lisa, to go live in the castle. Got to bring the essentials.
I know you got to bring the essentials. Well, he is famous for taking forever to work on paintings. There's the Saint Anne, the Virgin, or some people call it the Virgin of the Rocks. That is said to not even be completely finished. And he would have these things, for 10 or 12 years where he would just keep, going back and working on a little. He believed that, meditating on the art, like taking your time, was kind of the way to do it, which is why there's only 13 paintings of his in existence.
Wow. Well, I mean, there is something to say about that, like take your time, do a good job.
Yeah. So the Louvre owns there's more Leonardo da Vinci paintings in the Louvre than any other one place. Of course, we did an episode where we talked about the Mona Lisa itself. For a while there, she disappeared. She was stolen. She was taken back to Italy because Vincent, he thought that it was Napoleon that stole the Mona Lisa from Italy, when in fact it was all, it was all fairly done. It was all above board. There was no stealing of it. He brought it back. He sold it to Francoise. It's all above board and legal.
Oh, good.
Yeah, with no need to bring the Italian mobsters over and try to take her back.
Broken kneecaps.
Yeah, but there's it's really cool. A lot of times when you go to the Louvre, if you look close on all of the little cards that are the plaques that are next to the paintings, a lot of times you can find things and it'll say the collection of Francois, the collection of Louis XIV. But it's really cool, and look for the ones that say the collection of Francois Premier, because then that means those were some of the very first paintings that the Louvre had.
I'm going to be looking for that.
Yeah, but he left behind many beautiful things, and of course quite a few different chateaus. That would be a whole nother episode just to talk about all the different chateaus he did. But the Fontainebleau is amazing to go see. Of course, Hotel de Ville, especially if you're in Paris that weekend in September, definitely go and check it out, and make sure, plan to be there next year. If you can't do it this year, plan to do it next year.
I love all this great advice. You guys know what you're going to be doing on your next trip to Paris. And if you need someone to plan that trip, contact Claudine, and make sure to tune in next week for another episode.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.